Hi everybody, this is Sky Basu, CTO of Covare. We are starting today's webinar. This is focused on the users who are using Visual Studio and TFS, Microsoft's tool, and would like to use those tools along with other tools from other third-party vendors. Today I have with me Atanu Majumdar. He's our VP Engineering and the architect of Omnibus, the integration technology, which will be demonstrated during this webinar. There is no better person than Atanu to really demonstrating that particular technology because he's the architect and the designer of that particular piece of marvelous technology. So let's start with the question that why do we need to integrate? So there are certain goals for integration. Some of them are obvious. For example, we would like to see the data from one tool in another tool, what we call the data plumbing. But data plumbing is just the tip of the iceberg. There should be other goals and other benefits of doing integration. For example, we should be able to create traceability relations between the objects in different tools, so that if the object in one tool changes, we should know that what are the other objects in other tools are impacted by that. So a change management and impact analysis across the tool should be one of the goals of integration. Next is the process automation across the tool boundary. Often we use tools, different tools, which has got its own process automation engine built in. For example, we may have a bug tracking tool, we may have a requirements management tool, we may have a configuration management tool, each having their own process built-in state-based process engine. But what about a process which cuts across the tool boundary, so that a process where each of the activities is actually happening in different tools? So when you are integrating a number of different tools, that should be one of your goals. And finally, we should be able to see the data coming from different tools in a consolidated reports or consolidated dashboards. Now, one interesting factor here is that when these data are coming from different tools and these data are related to each other, often we find there are certain hidden patterns comes out in those metrics and the dashboards and the reports, which are not possible to see if you're just looking at one particular set of data from one particular tool. So that is one of the biggest advantages of having this integration and looking at the reports and dashboards which are cuts across the different tools. So now once we are convinced that yes, integration makes sense, we should have an integration among different tools, the next question is that what are my options? How do we do the integration? The first option, what is known as a point-to-point integration, is possibly the most popular one. Almost every vendor offers the point-to-point integration between their own tools as well as between their tool and other third-party vendor tools. Now, good thing about point-to-point integration is it's very simple. Every pair of tool, you create that integration. And also, it is you can include the best of the breed tools, whatever tool you like. But the problem is the overall complexity of having all these different kinds of integrations as your number of tools increase is actually increases in a square way. That means in a polynomial way. So for those of you who are kind of technically minded, it is actually order of n squared, wherein is the number of tools. So as you are growing your tool ecosystem, as you can see, the total number of integrations increases very, very fast. Now the second option you have is when there is a single vendor who comes to you and tells that, guys, you don't need to use any other tool other than ours because we have got all the tools. That is also a good option for companies who are starting from the scratch who does not have any other tools. But that is not necessarily true for most of us because we already use a number of different tools, best of the breed tools from different vendors. The third option is the ALM integration middleware, and that is where actually Covare comes, and we have integration technology called Omnibus. And this integration middleware actually allows you to create an ecosystem with adapters for each individual tool. So the overall complexity is order of n rather than n squared, as in point-to-point integration. As a matter of fact, I have a visual for that. Now, if you have 10 tools, as you can see in a point-to-point custom integration, for every pair of tools, you have to create that integration. So it actually creates kind of a rat's nest there. On the other hand, for an enterprise service bus, which is using the middleware, you just need 10 different adapters. Now, if you try to add the 11th tool here in this mix, in case of point-to-point integration, you have to actually create 10 different custom handcrafted code to create the integration between the 11th tool and all the other 10 existing tools. But in case of ESB, you just need one adapter. And that is the kind of savings, that is the kind of effort reduction you have when you go from point-to-point to enterprise service bus. By the way, enterprise service bus, we did not invent it. It was there for a last 15, 20 years in many other industries. Covair is just the first to introduce enterprise service bus architecture to the ALM industry. Now, let's look at the kind of ecosystem of different kinds of tools we have. So if you look at Covair Omnibus integration middleware, and for those of you who are using Microsoft Visual Studio and TFS, along with Omnibus, you have the enterprise reporting, the process automation, the management dashboard, the traceability, and overall enterprise-wide visibility all comes together with Omnibus. And then these are all the different adapters we have currently for Omnibus. The green ones are actually non-Microsoft tools, and the blue ones are Microsoft tools, including the Microsoft Office, as you can see here, like the Word, Excel, SharePoint, etc. Also the Microsoft development tools. And then also we have a number of tools which are actually we are working on, or we have those tools on our project roadmap. If you do not see a particular tool you're interested in, then typically we take 4 to 6 weeks to create the adapter for that tool. That's kind of average time. Okay, so let's talk about the Omnibus components a little bit. Omnibus is web service standard using SOA, which basically means that you should be able to integrate any tool running on any kind of platform, whether it's a mainframe, whether it's a Windows, Linux, even our desktop tool, anywhere in the world, because we use internet to connect them, even behind the firewall. And it uses, as I mentioned, enterprise service bus architecture. Now, along with the Omnibus platform, the components of Omnibus is the first one is the Omnibus platform, and that includes all these functionalities that creating the Covair entity framework, which basically means that you can create entities in Covair which corresponds the objects in external tools. So for example, you're using, let's say, Requisite Pro, which is a requirements management tool, and you can create a requirements entity within Covair to correspond that particular object in Requisite Pro. So loosely we call it a proxy entity. So you can create as many different kinds of entities in Covair which correspond to those external objects in external tools. Then you can create the traceability relation between all these different kinds of entities. So we have a number of different ways actually you can create, manage, view these traceability relations, and Atendo will actually show you some of those things. Then Covair also has a very powerful process engine called OmniProcess. So you can create multiple different processes for each of the entities, as well as you can create a process which cuts across the different tools, each one actually working on different entities. I'll give you an example. Let's say, again, taking the example of Requisite Pro, which is a requirements management tool. And Requisite Pro does not have a kind of process engine like OmniProcess. But having integration with Requisite Pro, now we can process enable the requirements which are being created in Requisite Pro. So that is possible using this integration. Covair also includes the reporting and dashboarding. You can create multiple different reports in a number of different formats. It can be HTML format, Excel format, Microsoft Word format as well as Crystal format. And we also have a dashboarding, so you can create multiple different dashboards for different roles of the users, for the project managers, for the developers, for the testers, for the business analysts. And these dashboards can include both graphical as well as textual or tabular reports. And finally, you have the administrative configuration interface to manage the integration business rules. Actually, that is another very important point I would like to kind of explain a little bit. You see that when you're creating a point-to-point integration, the business rules, how the data is going from one tool to another tool, are all hard-coded in the integration code itself. For example, I can say that only the approved requirements should go from Requisite Pro to Quality Center, which is a test management tool, from requirements management to test management tool. So this is a kind of business rule, and that will be hard-coded in the point-to-point integration. Whereas in Cohere, in Omnibus, as a matter of fact, you do not hard-code that as a part of the adapter. Remember that we have adapters for each of these tools. The adapters are actually a thin layer around the tool just to expose the data, the events, the methods of that each individual tools. And the business rules are actually managed and created and maintained by the end users using a browser-based interface just by a drag-and-drop interface. And finally, you have the Omnibus execution engine, which actually runs all these different kinds of business rules and integration logics and everything using these adapters. The other components of Omnibus is the adapters. Of course, for every tool, you need the adapter. And we actually have two kinds of adapters. One we call the adapters for those tools, which has got its own repository. So for example, Requisite Pro or Quality Center, which has got its own database or repositories, we have the adapters for them. Then you have the tools which does not have its own repository, like Visual Studio or Eclipse. For those, we have the plugins. So in the demo, Otanu actually will show you both the adapters and the plugins with respect to the individual tools. Okay, so today's demo, actually we are using a number of tools here, as it is shown. We will, as a matter of fact, start with the submission of a request from our corporate website. So that actually shows the integration with web pages, web forms. And then we'll be using the Requisite Pro for requirements management, both Visual Studio and Eclipse for coding as an IDE, Perforce and TFS for configuration management. That is actually another interesting point, that you can actually use multiple different tools for the same functionality, and they just work great working with each other. And then we'll be using the Quality Center, HP Quality Center for test management. And Cohere will be used as a central project management and reporting, etc. So here is a quick demo scenario. So as I mentioned, that we'll start with the customer requirements submitted from the corporate website. Then Mark, who is a kind of analyst, will go to Requisite Pro, see that particular customer requirement is replicated there, create a new functional requirement in Requisite Pro, and create the traceability link between them. Then we'll go to Ted. Ted is a tester. He will work on the Quality Center, and he will see the same customer requirement there, and then create a test case and create traceability link between the test case and that customer requirement. Then we'll see Dev as a developer, start with the Visual Studio, and within Visual Studio you'll be able to see all the different items we have so far created, the customer requirements submitted from the corporate website, functional requirements from the Requisite Pro, test cases from Quality Center, and sitting in Visual Studio using the Cohere plugin, he will be able to see all of those things. Then he will actually create basically the class and methods and projects sitting in Visual Studio and link those things with a customer requirement, basically saying that to implement the customer requirement, I need this method, I need this class, etc. And also he will check in that particular class file in TFS. He will also use Perforce, Dave, also use Perforce to check in the code file linking to the customer requirement. So he'll be able to use the both Perforce as well as TFS for configuration management. Then we'll go to SharePoint, and we'll see that customer requirement is replicated in SharePoint as an item in requirement custom list, and then we'll upload a document in SharePoint and link it to the same customer requirement. And finally, we'll also see how Eclipse user can do and see exactly the same thing which a typical Visual Studio user does. As a matter of fact, we find that there are many, many organizations where both Eclipse and Visual Studios are used by the development. And then finally, we'll come to Cover, and as project manager Mary should be able to see all sorts of different kinds of reports and the traceability hierarchy, traceability network diagram, and a number of different kinds of dashboard and reports. Okay, so that's the kind of demo. And as you can see, it's a pretty long demo, and I don't want to waste any more time and give it to Atanu to start. But before I hand it over to Atanu, one more thing. If you have any question, please use the question panel. There is a panel of the GoToWebinar there, and please type your question so that at the end of the demonstration, we would love to kind of address all of your questions you may have. Okay? So let me transfer it to Atanu. So hold on a second. Okay, Atanu, you're in.
Okay, thanks, Kai. Good afternoon, everybody. So as Kai mentioned that we will go through an example application development scenario today where different stakeholders are using their tools of choice, and we will see how they remain connected throughout the application lifecycle stages using the integrated ALM environment provided by Cover Omnibus. So let's start with the customer submitting a request or requirement from a portal site. So the page you're looking at, this is the Cover contact page, and you can see there's a link for customer requirement submission. So let's click on that. This is the kind of waveform created specifically for this demo to capture the customer request, but the look and feel of this particular page can be configured as per your corporate or product theme. So now let's start filling in the information here. So let's give the title for this. So advanced search for products, and this request is submitted from the portal. So this is the requirement. Let's put John Wright as the author, and company is ABC. It's a requirement type is customer. As you can see, all these field values. This is also coming through Cover Omnibus API from the configuration store. Okay, you can see different request type. Let's put the priority as high, and let's put a description for the request. Now let's save it. So what is happening in the background, this customer request is getting submitted to Cover Omnibus, and then as per your integration flow configuration, these customer requests can be broadcasted to different tools used by different stakeholders. Okay, so now let's go to a different server. And let's open up the requirements management tool, which is Requisite Pro. So in our case, Mark is a requirement analyst, and he is using the Requisite Pro tool for managing the requirements. And this is the interface for the Requisite Pro. As you can see, this is the project folder, and under which you can see several customer and functional requirements. And one of them is, as you can see, CR624, Advanced Search for Products Request from Portal. So this is the customer request we just submitted from the Cohere portal site. So this was captured by Cohere Omnibus and broadcasted to your Requisite Pro repository. So as an analyst, I can immediately see the requirement here, and the next thing that I need to do is to analyze this requirement and create functional requirements to implement this particular customer requirement. So what I would do is I would create a new requirement of type functional, and let's say give it a build Google like search. Okay. Okay. Let's put the same kind of description here, and I can change the attributes also. Let's put the priority for these also as high. So now let's set this particular functional requirement. Okay. So this is now set. I can go back to the customer requirement, double click it, and what I want to do is also I would like to link the new functional requirement that I created here to this customer requirement. So go to the traceability tab and select this functional requirement and link it. Okay. If I now go back to the functional requirement, you will see that the traceability is there from the from side. Okay. So as a requirement analyst, what I have done here is I can see the requirement and I can create the functional requirement, and I'm done here. But what is the advantage that Mark is getting here because of the Omnibus integration environment? So what is happening here is that he can see all the requirements captured automatically in Requisite Pro, and he does not need to deal with manual static imports. Data is real, and it can come from your marketing people's tool like Salesforce. It can be an help desk tool like Remedy, or portal by your customer directly, as it has happened right now. Okay, so no conflict of information, and all the tools are synchronized with the latest changes that I'm making in Requisite Pro. All the other requirement tools or test management tools are getting synchronized with these particular whatever changes or additions we are doing in this tool. Okay. Now I will go to another server. Okay, and we'll open up HP Quality Center. Okay, so for our demo today, Ted is the test manager who is using the Quality Center tool to create the test cases. So if I now go to the requirements, so this is the interface for the Quality Center, and they have different objects like requirements, test plan, test resource, lab, defects, and stuff. So right now we are in the requirements tab, and you can see that both the requirements, this is the requirement that we submitted from the portal site, and this was the requirement Mark just created in Requisite Pro. Both the requirements are shown here, and if I open up, I can see the priority was high, as I said. The description is also here, so I can see the detail of it. Now, as a tester, what I need to do is need to create test cases. So I will go to Test Plan tab and create a new test case. So let's say check incremental search as you type text. Okay, and it is from QC. Okay, so let's add that test case. Now the other thing that I would like to do is, what is this test case for? This test case is to test the requirements that I have just seen. So what I need to do is I need to create a traceability between the requirements and the test case. So let's select the requirement. So this is the customer requirement coming from the portal side, and this is the functional requirement coming from Requisite Pro. So I have created the coverage now. Now if I now go back to the requirements and double click on the requirement and go to the test coverage, you will see that this new test case shows up there. Okay, and it should be the same from the functional requirement also. You should see the test coverage. Okay, so here also, what is the benefit that TED is having with the Omnibus integration environment? So he can see all the customer and functional requirements coming from different requirement management tool and create test case for those. He is working on the real data, and that is dynamic up to minute. It is not a static handoff. So if you do not have an environment like Cohere Omnibus, which is working in the back end to kind of moving data from one tool to another, that's why you can basically see the changes immediately into your tool. So let's say right now Mark changes something in the requirement in the Requisite Pro tool. As a tester, I would be notified and immediately get to see that change here within the Quality Center tool, and I can modify my test case as per the change. So that's the advantage I'm having here. It is not a static handoff between the requirement team and the testing team in the context of a static Word document. I'm having access to the real-time data, and as it is getting changed, I can see it and I can find out what would be the impact on the test cases and change it accordingly. Okay? So now I'm done with the Quality Center. Let's now get to the Visual Studio. Okay? Let's open a Visual Studio. So as Kai was mentioning that for some of the tools which are repository based, we have adapters. Like for Requisite Pro and Quality Center, we have adapters, Omnibus adapters. And for tools like Microsoft Visual Studio, Eclipse, we have plugins. And you can see here, this is a Visual Studio interface, and you see a special menu for Omnibus. And you can click on the connect, and Dave is the developer here, and he's logging into the system. Okay, so you can see that this is the Explorer interface, Omnibus Explorer, and you can get to see all the projects that you have access to. So the particular project we are working on is the new app development, and here you see all the artifacts, and these artifacts may be coming from different tools, like the requirements coming from Requisite Pro tool, the test cases coming from Quality Center, issues may be coming from a help-desk tool like Remedy, and these the TFS is the TFS files, task may be your workflow task, the change set that may be coming from the Subversion. So the different artifacts coming from different tools. So let's double click on the requirement, and it brings the requirement list. Okay, so if I now, so you see it shows up advanced search for products request from portal. So this is the requirement we just submitted from the portal side. And if I now open up the detail for this particular requirement, it should show me the details. So you see the title is there and different custom informations are there. Okay, and you can go see the description, attachment, comment, and things like that. So now if I go to the traceability section, you see these are the different links that this particular customer requirement has, and this link, like say this is the requisite pro requirement, so I can see the requisite pro requirement from within the Visual Studio environment. I can see the test cases that is coming from the quality center, okay, and there is also an implicit link between the project in which the requirement was submitted, okay. So as a developer, I can see all the artifacts coming from different tools in the context of this particular requirement. So I have better knowledge, and I can basically have informed decisions, creating the code and things like that, okay. So now, if you are just Visual Studio user not using TFS, then this Omnibus Explorer you can use to see the artifacts coming from different tools. But if you are using TFS, we also have integration with TFS. So let's say if I now go to the Team Explorer, and if I now open up my requirements, see, both the requirement shows here. This is the advanced search for products. This is from the portal site, the customer request, and this is the requisite pro requirement. And I can see the details of it and things like that. Okay, all the details. Okay, and if I now open up the test cases, you get to see the test case. The top one is coming from the quality center. So if I'm using TFS, also I can see all these items as TFS work items, even though the source of these artifacts are different tools. Okay. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to create a code file to implement this particular requirement. So let's say this is my project, Cover HLD. Okay, so now let's copy this product code and create it here, and then let's rename it. Give it a name. So search product.
Atanu, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. We can hear you speaking, so I thought.
Yes. So now let's basically change the class name. Product and give it a one and save it. And then you can see from here directly I'm getting a context menu Omnibus, and I can add this method, this detail level method, to the Omnibus, which can subsequently be linked to any requirement, any test case, any design element, stuff like that. Okay, so let's add to Omnibus, and if we go to select the project, which project it would be linked, and this is done. If I now go to our Omnibus Explorer, and if you double click on the VSTS method, you will see that this is so see here, this is the search product, method 1 and things like that. And if I open up this detail for this method, I can see the details of this method, and you can see how is it linked. So automatically the link with the class file and the method file is also there. So any other developer seeing it from Visual Studio, they would be immediately be able to see this method, and I can link it to different other artifacts like a requirement test case and things like that. Okay. So now what I want to do now is to check in this file. So if I now right click and check into what? TFS. So yes, and I can select the work item as our, let's say, the customer requirement. This is the customer requirement from the portal site. You can see advanced search for products. Okay. And if I say want to put some code review done, okay, security review done, okay, and also performance review. Okay, so and we have the work item selected here. So I'm checking in this particular file because I have been created this code file to implement this particular customer requirement. So let me check this file in. Okay, so as a developer, what is the advantage Dave is getting here? So first of all, Dave gets to see all the artifacts coming from different tools. So quality is better because Dave can now make informed decision as he has access to all the artifacts linked to this particular requirement. Also, his productivity is increased as he can save a lot of time which was wasted to find out the code files which are worked on when you are fixing a particular bug or feature. So let's say this particular feature, if another developer comes in 4 months later to do some enhancement for this particular feature, how would he find out that what was the code written to implement the original requirement? Now, since from within the Visual Studio environment, all this traceability between the code file and the requirement is getting captured. So if I come back after 4 months to do some enhancements on that particular feature, I can easily find out that what was the code written and then go implement the new enhancement. Okay. So now we will show, get to Perforce. So as you have seen that from the Visual Studio TFS, we can kind of create a code file and check it into TFS. We would like to show that with Perforce also, if somebody is using Perforce as a configuration management tool. And configuration and the Perforce as a concept of job. So this is the Perforce interface. So let's say if I go to now jobs and search by so this is the requirement that has been replicated in Perforce automatically through Cohere Omnibus infrastructure as a job to work on by the developer. So you get to see the job here. Now what I can do is I can create a change list here. So let's say I have done some coding here and I've implemented the feature, and I want to kind of link it to that particular job. So advanced search, click that, save as number, change list. So these would create a pending job, a pending change list here. So now let's say this is the code file. Open up in Visual Studio. It's taking some time to open up the editor.
You may want to open a text file maybe.
It's basically taking time to open up the Visual Studio interface, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just opening up the Visual Studio since it's a CS.
Okay, so this is the code file that we have. So let's close this. Now, what I want to do is I want to basically put this file into this change list. So drag and drop it, and then now what I want to do is submit this change list. So submit, and the particular job that I'm working on, I can keep it open or closed. So let's keep it open, and let's submit the change list. So that means the whatever code I have written to implement this particular requirement is now getting submitted. Okay. So now this is done as a Perforce user. I have written my code and kind of checked in that particular file in the context of the job that was here. So if I now double click on the job, you get to see that this is the change list and this was the file. Okay. And if I now, yeah, so that's it for Perforce. Now let's also go to 108 and see how an Eclipse developer would see all these items from within Eclipse. So like Visual Studio, we have a plugin from Eclipse, and you can see the Omnibus menu here. So you can connect as developer D, and so this is, so let's open up the requirement. So this opens up the requirement list, and if I so this is the requirement, particular requirement. We have advanced search for products. So let's open it up to get to see the details. So you can see, like in Visual Studio, I can have the similar kind of detail from within Eclipse. And if I go to traceability now, it shows more traceable items because by now we have created some more items and linked to this particular requirement. So the quality center test case shows up here. This is the Perforce change list. This is the Requisite Pro requirement. This was the project implicit requirement. And this is the TFS change set. So from within Eclipse, as things are happening, different people are working on this requirement, check-in file, creating test cases. I can see it immediately from within the Eclipse environment. Okay. So now let's go back and open up Cover tool, where a project manager, Mary, how she can see the progress as things are happening in different tools. So let's see that. So let's go to the requirements list. So this is the Cover, the workbench for different artifacts coming from different tools. You can see it here. So you can see this is the requirement that we submitted from the portal side. So let's go view this particular requirement. And if you now go down, it has several sections. So let's now open up the link to requirements section. So as a manager, I'm looking how the things are getting done to implement this particular requirement. So I see a functional requirement is created in Requisite Pro, and I can see it here. Okay. Now let's open up the link test cases section. So you get to see the test case. So this test case was created in Quality Center, and I can see it here. Okay. Now let's open up the link change list. So this is the Perforce change list that was created, and I can see it from here. Now let's see the TFS change set. So this is the TFS change set. I can click on that. It should take me to the TFS change set component, and I can from there find out what was the file change. So this was the file change. So get to that file, and I can open up the file. So if I open up with a notepad, see, this is the file that we have written in Visual Studio to implement this particular feature. So this is the file. I can see it here. So one important thing to remember here is that these files, like the Perforce file or the TFS file, these files are not getting stored within the Cover Omnibus infrastructure. These are getting on demand. So as you click on the file content, it is going to TFS and bringing the file on demand. So this is what we call as a federated data structure. Okay, so we bring the file on demand from the configuration management tool, because we don't need to store or replicate thousands of files into the Cover system. Oh, one other thing I need to show is the SharePoint. Log into SharePoint. So if I now go, so in the SharePoint we have created a kind of custom list. So here also you can see the requirement is there from the portal site, and the requirement from Requisite Pro is also there. So what I want to do is I want to create a new document here. So upload and browse and share docs to that. Okay. Should see web share docs new. edit the property. And name as title. And now let's go to the requirement, and if I edit this item and link this Word document, shared docs 2. So what I have done as a SharePoint user is, some people use SharePoint as the document management, so you can create different design documents and stuff like that here and upload it into SharePoint, and then you can link that document to your requirement. But at the same time, you see that your requirements are coming automatically into your SharePoint requirement list, and that is getting done through Omnibus. Okay. Now let's go back to the requirement here, and we have already seen these different items, and now there is also another diagram here, relation diagram, which would show all the artifacts that are created in the context of this particular requirement in a linked format, in a network diagram format. So you see, this is the requirement that was created from the portal site, the original request, and this is the Rec Pro requirement. Then this is the test case from Quality Center. This is the SharePoint document. This is the Perforce change list. And if I double click on the Perforce change list, it should bring the file. Also, you can see here, if I double click on the change set TFS, it gets the TFS file here. So I get the whole connectivity of the requirement here. So from one single place, I can see all the artifacts, how they're connected. And even from here, directly, I can open up and view the record and see the SharePoint document directly from here. Okay. Now, let's show another, see another report, traceability hierarchy, also in the same format, but so this is the project, and now I'm expanding the project. This is the customer requirement. Now I can see in the customer requirement, so this was the customer requirement. This is the change set from TFS. Expand that, I can get to see the TFS file, and then this is the Requisite Pro requirement. This is the test case, and this is the Perforce change list, and also this is the Perforce file. So this is a nice report where I can see all the items and their different information in the context of this particular requirement. Okay. Now let's show another report. So we have a Word plugin using which you can create different Word template as per your kind of requirement, and then upload those Word templates to the COBAS system, and then generate a report automatically from within the system. And all the artifacts that are coming from different tools, you can embed those in information within the Word template and see that report. So it's taking some time. There are a number of requirements in that project. So it's what it is doing is creating the report in the background, getting all the artifact information coming from different tools and putting that into Word document. So this is an integrated Word document. Okay. So let's see. This is an example document. You can configure it as per your template, your formatting and stuff like that. Okay. So this is the document that is generated. So let's now page number. See, this is the particular requirement that we created. So this is the requirement from the portal side. You get to see different information. This is the Requisite Pro requirement. And then you have the SharePoint document. You have the Quality Center test case and the Perforce change list, the Perforce file, the TFS file. See all the review comment we put in Visual Studio TFS. It's getting shown here. And also the TFS file here. And this is a nicely formatted document with rich text and all these things. So if you're capturing these text from different tools, that would also show up here. So this is, let's now see some of the dashboards. Click on the dashboard. So Cover has different graphical, textual dashboards, as you can see, pie charts, bar chart, trend, so different kind of reports. So, and these reports are getting real-time data, and the data is coming from different tools. So like say if I click on the customer portion of the pie chart and sort by the requirement ID, I get to see the requirement from the portal. So this is here. Now if I click on the functional part, I should be able to see the requirement from the Requisite Pro. Yes, that shows up here. Okay. Now if I go down, so you see here, this is a report for code coverage. So this is the particular requirement. I see that there is a TFS file already linked. So that means coding has already been started, and I can see it from here. Okay. If I go down for the test coverage, so see both the requirements here, Requisite Pro requirement and the portal requirement, and I see the test cases are also created against that. So that means I know the test cases are there and it would be tested. Okay. Test run coverage or run status. So here if I click on the no run and sort it by ID, I should be able to see the test case from Quality Center. It shows up here. It has not been run yet, but if I run the test case either manually or through QTP, we have also integration with QTP, then the test results would show up here, whether it is passed, failed, and things like that. So there are several reports like that. All the data is coming real time from different tools. So as a project manager, I can observe how things are moving, how the different stakeholders are using their tools to create different artifacts while developing the code, while testing the requirement from one single place. I can see all the integrated dashboards and reports. So as you can see that everybody is connected in the process, even though they are using different tools, information is not locked in any single tool. It is now available for everybody from everywhere, and Cover Omnibus makes it possible. Okay, so that's the end of my demo portion. Now I would hand it over to Sky for further discussion and slideshows.
Okay, thank you, Atanu. That was a wonderful demonstration. I hope that our attendees today got a fairly good idea about how Omnibus can be used to integrate a number of different tools from different vendors to Visual Studio and TFS to get a full ecosystem of all these different tools. So let me transfer back the control to me. Actually, let's go to my screen here. So as I mentioned before Atanu started that please put your questions there. So while you are putting your questions, let me show you a couple of more slides here. So So for example, when we are talking about Omnibus, of course, Omnibus is the technology to create all these different adapters, etc. But Omnibus is not just that. Omnibus actually a full environment to manage your integration. That includes all the different functionalities like the conflict detection, the system recovery, the load balancing, etc. So Omnibus is actually being used in production by a very large Indian service company in a distributed manner for a large number of users. So all these different enterprise strength functionalities are used for managing such a huge distributed integration ecosystem. So that's basically what Omnibus is. Now here is actually the Microsoft tools which are actually integrated with Omnibus, and we have actually we support VSTS, I think 2005, 2008, 2010, so all the version up to the 2010, the latest one. And actually for the users for, let's say, the VSTS architect, so these are some of the screenshots we have created. So VSTS architect, you can actually directly add your designs directly to Omnibus using this interface. Similarly, if you're using VSTS Team Builder, then when you have a build error, automatically that will be added to Omnibus and replicated to whatever bug tracking tool you're using, maybe Jira or something else. Similarly, the VSTS build, an error will be added to Omnibus and replicated to the bug tracking tool. Or if you're using FXCOP, which is a guideline compliance enforcer, so any kind of compliance error, again, those things can be added to your bug tracking tool or any kind of incident management tool using Omnibus. So these are all the, I would say, migration paths to use additional Microsoft VSTS tools. We already have those adapters ready so that you can start using whenever you are ready. So what are the value proposition for the Microsoft Tools users? First of all, Omnibus is a single point turnkey integration for multi-vendor tools, as we have shown today. And it can actually solve for every integration and migration situation you may be facing today. We have the most extensive adapter library today. There is no other technology in the market which has got so many adapters and the enterprise service bus. As we mentioned that it is an enterprise service bus, so it is much superior to a point-to-point integration available from other vendors. And finally, we empower the end users to use the visual interface to create and manage all the business rules. Okay, so let's look at some of these questions you have put possibly. But in the meantime, if you have any further questions, please send email to the sales@scovare.com. Okay, so let's see some of these questions. Okay, so one of the questions is, should the requirements always be submitted in the specified way? The answer is no. Actually, this is just as an example we have given that using this corporate website, we have submitted a requirement, but you can create the requirement directly in Requisite Pro, as Atanu has shown, or any other requirements management tool. If you're using Caliber RM, Doors, etc., you can actually create these requirements a number of different ways. Even sending an email, Covare actually integrates email also. So there are a number of different ways you can actually create these requirements. Does this support Visual Studio 2010? As I mentioned, yes, it does support Visual Studio 2010. And let's see. Then the question is about the pricing. Pricing actually, as I mentioned, that there are different components of Covare. You have the Covare platform, which depends on the number of users, basically. And we have got different slabs for that number of users. Then, of course, you have the adapters, and the adapter prices, of course, depends on the particular tool. For simple tool, normally the adapter prices are a little lower than more complex tools. And then also you have the plugins, and it depends on how many people will be using the plugin, that means the Visual Studio plugins. So one thing I can mention that our pricing is actually very friendly, and it is a very small fraction of the investment you have made for your tools so far. So that is about the pricing. And again, the question is about the TFS 2010. The answer is yes. We have the adapter for both Visual Studio and TFS 2010. With that, I would like to conclude today's webinar today. It's already 5 minutes past our time. And once again, thank you so much to everybody to attend this webinar. And on behalf of Atanu and myself, I'd like to thank you once again. Goodbye.